This looks like something scraped off a cafeteria tray. Even I could do better." The words hit the table before the sound even settled. Forks hovered in the air. Chairs stilled mid-shift. Breathing itself seemed to hesitate, as if the entire room needed permission to continue existing. Only my daughter's voice moved. Sharp, confident, careless. I reached for my water glass, letting the moment stretch just long enough for her to think she had scored whatever silent victory she imagined. The glass was cool against my fingers. My throat felt tight, but my face stayed calm. When I finally spoke, the words came out steady, almost quiet. "I did not cook tonight." The room cracked open. Now I should introduce myself, though I suppose the person you are meeting is standing in the space between that single sentence and everything it shattered. My name is Thora Whitfield. I am 67. I have lived long enough to know which moments change things. This was one of them. Across the table, my daughter Lila blinked. Thrown off for the first time all evening, her mouth opened, then shut again, the confidence slipping. She looked at the plate, then at me, a flicker of uncertainty crossing her face before she straightened in her chair as if posture alone could erase what she had just said. She did not know who had made the meal, and she did not care enough to ask. Not yet. My mother Evelyn shifted in her seat beside me, her hands folding together in her lap. I saw her knuckles whiten, the familiar tremble returning to her fingers. She had tried to hide her excitement earlier when she said she wanted to cook something simple, nothing fancy. She said it lightly, but I knew exactly what she meant. She wanted to feel useful again, even if her hands disagreed with her. Now she sat smaller than she had an hour ago. My son-in-law cleared his throat but did not speak. He rarely intervened. Lila had a gravity when she was in one of her moods. People orbited around it, afraid to collide. I knew that gravity well. I had spent years trying to soften it, redirect it, understand it. Tonight, it pulled the air straight out of the room. Lila pushed her chair back slightly. "Well, if you didn't make it, then who?" "You do not have to finish that sentence," I said. She stopped. Not because I raised my voice, I did not, but because she heard something she was not used to: finality. My tone carried the weight of something unspoken, something she had not expected to meet at a Sunday family dinner. The silence grew heavier, the kind you feel in your chest before you feel it in your ears. Evelyn reached for her napkin. Her fingers brushed the edge, then paused. If she spoke, her voice would shake. I knew this because she had always been easy for me to read, even before age softened the expression she tried to hide. I placed my hand over hers under the table, a small gesture meant only for her. She looked at me briefly, a quiet, fragile glance, and then stared down at her untouched plate. Lila noticed, and for a flashing second, I saw something like confusion in her eyes. She was smart enough to recognize the shift, even if pride held her tongue. "Mom," she said, softer now. "I did not mean I know what you meant," I replied. "But we can talk about this later." It was not the time. Not with my mother's shoulders sinking and my daughter's bravado cracking at the edges. I stood, gathering the serving dishes with slow, deliberate movements. I heard Lila inhale as if she wanted to argue, but she did not. Not this time. My mother's hands trembled again. Lila saw it. And the first hint of realization finally touched her face. Not enough to understand, but enough to unsettle her. That was how the night ended. Not with shouting, not with resolution, but with a silence that followed us into the hallway, the kitchen, and the small moments afterward when each of us retreated to our own corners of the house. By the next morning, that silence would turn into something else. A truth Lila was not ready for, a truth she would wish she had known before she opened her mouth at that dinner table. And it all began with the question she never thought to ask. That afternoon, long before Lila's words cracked the room open. I stood in the kitchen watching my mother pull open a drawer she could barely lift. Evelyn was 84. Some days she moved like she was 60. Some days she moved like she was 100. That day, she was both. "Hand me the peeler," she said, her voice light, pretending her fingers were not already curling inward from the stiffness. I passed it to her. "Mom, I can do the vegetables." "I know you can," she replied, smiling without looking at me. "But I want to." Her knuckles tightened around the handle. Skin paper thin, veins rising like lines in an old map. She pressed the blade to the carrot, and the first long strip fell unevenly onto the cutting board. She winced, just slightly, just enough for me to see. "You do not have to prove anything today," I said gently. "I am not proving," she murmured. "I am participating." That was her new word, participating, a softer replacement for useful, which she had stopped saying aloud after her hands began shaking too much to button her own blouse. I stepped closer. "What if we pick a simpler menu?" She shook her head. "Lila likes this dish. She always did." There was no point arguing. Once Evelyn set her heart on something, it stayed set. I reached for the onions and began chopping while she peeled the second carrot. The kitchen was small, barely enough room for two people to work side by side. But we had cooked in smaller spaces when I was a girl. Back then, her movements were fast, efficient. The body of a woman who raised 3 children while working 6 days a week. Now every motion cost her something. "Did you hear from Lila today?" she asked softly. I hesitated, briefly. That does not sound promising. It was neutral. Evelyn stopped peeling. Neutral isn't her. Something is wrong. I did not answer. My mother always sensed tension before I did. She set down the peeler and flexed her fingers slowly. When she was little, she used to follow me around the kitchen and ask how everything worked. "You remember?" "Yes," I whispered. She was always curious. She still is. Evelyn said, just in a different way. I wanted to believe that. But lately, Lila's curiosity felt more like suspicion. Like she was waiting for the world to disappoint her so she could strike first. Evelyn reached for the pot next, lifting it with more effort than she admitted. I steadied the other handle without making a show of it. "You always do that," she said. "Do what helped me without telling me you are helping." "Is that a complaint?" "It is an observation," she said, smiling faintly. "I appreciate it." We worked in silence for a few minutes, letting the vegetables soften in the pan. Evelyn hummed an old tune under her breath, the same one she used to sing while braiding my hair before school. "Thora," she said suddenly, "let me handle the seasoning. I remember exactly how she liked it." "All right," I said, stepping aside. She sprinkled the spices with slow precision, the way she once taught Lila, the way she taught me. Her hand trembled halfway through, and the spoon clattered lightly against the rim. She steadied herself and kept going. "This," she said quietly, "is the first meal I have cooked for all of us in months." I knew. I also knew how much courage it took for her to say that aloud. When the dish was finally ready, she exhaled like someone releasing something she had been holding too tightly. "It looks good," I said. "It feels good," she corrected. I carried the pot to the dining room while she wiped her hands carefully on a towel. She paused in the doorway, smoothing her hair, standing a little straighter, wanting to be seen, and she was, just not the way she deserved. Hours later, when Lila dismissed the food with that cruel sentence, my mother's shoulders folded like paper. She never knew what those hands had gone through that afternoon. The morning after the dinner, I found Lila in the living room, sitting on the edge of the couch with her elbows on her knees, scrolling through her phone as if nothing had happened. The sunlight through the window caught her face just enough to show the faint crease between her brows, the one that had become permanent sometime in the last few years. About last night. I began. She did not look up. I do not want to rehash it, Mom. Rehash. A word she used often now. Like her life was a series of meetings she did not want to attend twice. Lila. What you said? It was a joke. She cut in. Everyone at work talks like that. It is not a big deal. I sat down across from her. It hurt your grandmother. Her jaw tightened, but she did not react. Instead, she glanced at the clock. I have emails. I cannot stay long. Sit with me for a moment. I said, please. She exhaled sharply, as if I had asked her to carry a boulder up a hill. Fine, but I really do not have time for a lecture. I am not lecturing, I said quietly. I am trying to understand you. That made her look up. Not softly, not gently. She looked at me like someone bracing for impact. Understand what she said. That I have opinions, that I do not sugarcoat things like you do. That I expect people to handle honesty. It was not honesty, I replied. It was cruelty. Her eyes flashed. You are so dramatic. No, I said, steadying my voice. I am tired. That caught her off guard. She had not expected me to say that. Her posture shifted, and for a second she looked like the girl she used to be, wide-eyed, unsure, searching. Then it vanished as quickly as it appeared. She stood up abruptly. I cannot do this. I have too much to deal with. What are you dealing with? I asked. She paused by the hallway. Her shoulder angled away from me as if she was debating whether to answer. My job is a mess, she said finally. Everything I do is watched. Everyone else is faster, smarter, better. I am trying to hold it together. And you think lashing out makes it easier? I asked softly. She spun around. You do not get it. You retired. You get to slow down. I do not. I am competing against people 10 years younger than me who sleep in their offices and brag about it. The bitterness in her voice startled me. It was raw, unfiltered, a glimpse of something I had not seen before. Why did you not tell me any of this? I asked. Because you would just worry. She snapped. And I cannot handle being someone else's responsibility when I am barely handling my own. Her voice cracked on the last word. Not loud, not dramatic, just enough for me to hear the pressure she carried like a weight strapped to her chest. I stepped closer. You were never my responsibility. You were my daughter. She flinched. It was small but real. Mom, she whispered. I do not want to be this person. I do not. She pressed the heel of her palm against her eyes. Trying to push back tears she refused to let fall. I do not know how to stop. Her confession hung between us, fragile as glass. For a moment, neither of us moved. Her phone buzzed, and she jerked away as if the sound had snapped her back into armor. She cleared her throat, straightened her coat, and grabbed her bag. I have to go, she said. Lila? She shook her head. Already halfway out the door. Later. Mom. The door clicked shut behind her. I stood in the quiet living room, listening to the silence she left behind. It was not the silence of peace. It was the silence of someone running from themselves. And for the first time, I realized I no longer recognized the woman who had walked out my front door. I found my mother in the kitchen long after the dishes had been cleared. The lights were dim, and she stood at the sink with her back to me, wiping the same plate over and over, as if the porcelain would eventually confess what she had done wrong. Mom, I said softly. She startled slightly, but did not turn around right away. When she finally did, her eyes lowered before meeting mine. I am sorry, Thora. I truly did not mean to ruin the evening. My chest tightened. You did not ruin anything. She shook her head gently, her silver hair shifting with the movement. Your daughter is right. I should not have insisted on cooking. I knew my hands were not steady enough. I must have done something wrong. The seasoning, or the texture. Something. You did nothing wrong, I said, but the way she pressed her lips together told me she did not believe it. She set the plate down and reached for another, her fingers trembling just enough for the dish to clink against the counter. She kept her voice low, almost careful. I wanted to help. I wanted to feel like I still can, but maybe I am past that now. I stepped forward and gently took the plate from her hands. Mom, listen to me. She looked away. Lila was embarrassed. I could tell. I heard her tone. Thora, I know what that sounds like. That tone was not about you, I said firmly. She was not thinking about who cooked. She was not thinking about anything except what is going on inside her. Her eyes softened with recognition, the way they always did when she sensed more beneath the surface. She is angry. She is overwhelmed, I corrected, and she took it out on the wrong person. Evelyn exhaled slowly, but the hurt lingered. Children grow up, but their words still carry the weight they did when they were young. I suppose I should be used to it by now. I reached for her hand. You do not deserve to be spoken to like that. Not then, not now, not ever. Her fingers curled around mine, frail, but warm. Thora, she is your daughter. You will defend her. That is how it should be. I am not defending her, I said. I am explaining her. There is a difference. For a moment, she searched my face, as if looking for permission to let go of her guilt. Her shoulders sagged when she finally whispered, I just wanted the meal to be good. It was, I said, and it meant something. To me. Her eyes glistened, not with pride, but with relief, a relief she had been holding inside all night. Too afraid to claim. I squeezed her hand gently before releasing it. Let us finish the dishes together. She nodded. A small, grateful nod. But when she reached for the towel, I could still feel the apology clinging to her, like a shadow she could not quite step out of. Lila left the same way she had arrived, fast, sharp, and loud enough to make every picture frame on the hallway wall tremble. The door slammed so hard, the floor groaned beneath us. My mother flinched in the kitchen doorway, her hand gripping the counter as if steadying herself against an earthquake. I stayed where I was, staring at the door, listening to the echo fade. Evelyn spoke first. She is upset. She is furious, I corrected. And she does not even know why. My mother's eyes lowered. You two have been growing apart for a while. I turned to her. We are not growing apart. She is stressed. She is overwhelmed. She is hurting, Evelyn said softly. People who hurt tend to hurt others. I wanted to deny it, but the truth sat heavily between us. A moment later, Evelyn stepped closer. What did you say to her? That she cannot speak to you that way, I answered. Or to me. My mother nodded as if she approved. But her posture told another story, her shoulders small, drawn inward, like she was afraid of being the reason everything cracked open. She touched my arm. Thora, she did not mean it. Intent does not erase impact, I said. Evelyn's brow furrowed. You sound like her therapist. I sound like someone who is tired, I replied. The look in her eyes shifted something like worry mixed with guilt. Do not carry this alone. I gave a dry laugh. That seems impossible lately. One of you pretends you caused the problem. The other pretends there is no problem, and I am in the middle trying to hold the edges together. Evelyn exhaled softly. We are trying. I know, I said, but trying is not fixing. Before she could respond, my phone buzzed on the table. A message from Lila. Do not come after me. I need space. I stared at it for a long moment. Evelyn stepped closer. Are you going to reply no? I said, not right now. She hesitated. Should I talk to her? Maybe she would listen to me. No. My voice came out sharper than I intended. You do not need to fix this. My mother looked away, her hands twisting the edge of her sleeve. I keep causing trouble without meaning to. First the meal, now this. Mom, I said firmly. Stop. She went still. You did nothing wrong. I continued. Not yesterday. Not today. Not when you wanted to cook. Not when you asked if she was all right. You are not the reason she exploded. Her eyes glistened. Then why does it feel like I am always in the way? I swallowed. Because she knows you love her no matter what. That makes you safe. Safe people get the worst of us. She nodded slowly, but did not look convinced. I took her hands gently. You are not the problem. Her fingers trembled in my palms, fragile as paper. Then what is? Thora, what is happening to our family? The question lingered in the space between us. Real, heavy, and too complicated to answer in a single breath. Before I could respond, she pulled her hands back and moved toward the sink. I should finish the dishes. Leave them, I said. We can do them later. She shook her head. If I stop moving, I will start thinking, and I do not want to think right now. I watched her turn on the water, her shoulders rising and falling in a rhythm too deliberate to be natural. She was holding herself together the same way Lila was falling apart silently, stubbornly, afraid of the wrong things. I stepped into the hallway and looked toward the front door, still rattled from the slam. In that moment, the old bungalow felt smaller than it ever had, 3 women living under one roof. None of us saying the words we needed to say, each holding on to hurts we did not know how to name. I took a deep breath and walked back into the kitchen, unsure which fire I was supposed to put out first. Lila returned late the next morning, the front door opening quietly, as if she hoped to slip in without being noticed. I was sitting at the kitchen table with a cup of tea I had reheated twice. My mother was still asleep. The house felt heavy, like it was waiting to exhale. Lila paused when she saw me. I came for my laptop, she said, voice flat. I have a meeting. You could have knocked. I replied. She shrugged. I did not want to wake Grandma. There was guilt in her tone, thin, quickly buried, but it was there. She moved past me, grabbed her bag, and set her phone on the table to search for the charger she always misplaced. While she rummaged through her things, the phone lit up beside me. A notification banner appeared. A preview of an email. My heart stilled. Human Resources subject line. Follow up on performance concerns and burnout indicators. I looked away immediately, but the words had already carved themselves into my mind. Lila saw my face freeze a moment too long. She snatched the phone off the table. Do not. I did not touch it, I said. You looked at it. It lit up in front of me, Lila. She shoved the phone into her bag, her breath uneven. It is none of your business. You are my daughter, I said. Your life is my business. Her voice rose. Not anymore. I am not 15. You do not need to manage me. I am not trying to manage you, Paul. I am trying to understand you. I do not need understanding. Her hands tightened around the bag strap. I need space. You need help, I said quietly. She stopped moving, her shoulders tensed. I am doing fine. You are not, I said. You are exhausted. You are overwhelmed. And you are pretending everything is fine until you collapse. She turned sharply. Do you want the truth? Mom, fine? Work is a disaster. My boss says my numbers are slipping. I am behind on 2 major projects. Half my team is younger and better at everything, and the other half thinks I am too emotional. I am barely sleeping. I am always anxious, and every day feels like a test I am failing. Is that what you wanted to hear? She said it without taking a breath, like she had been holding the words in her mouth for months. I sat down slowly. Why did you not tell me? Because you already worry about everything, she said. Because I do not want to be another problem you feel obligated to fix. You are not a problem. Her eyes glistened, but she blinked the tears back. Yes, I am. And work sees it. HR sees it. And last night, Grandma saw it too. She sank into the chair opposite mine, suddenly smaller than she had been a minute ago. I did not mean to hurt her, she whispered. I did not mean to hurt anyone. I reached for her hand, but she pulled back gently. I cannot break in front of you, she said. If I break here too, then where do I go? Her voice cracked on the last word. She stood up again, wiping her face, quickly, as if emotion itself was a weakness she could not afford. I have to go, she said. Lila, please, she whispered. Not right now. She walked out before I could say anything else. The door closed softer this time, but the sound lingered, trembling like something fragile and unfinished. I stayed at the table long after she left. The words, performance concerns, and burnout indicators echoing louder than the slam of last night's door. The rain had already started by the time I stepped outside. Not a downpour, just the steady Portland drizzle that soaked into everything without asking permission. I walked without an umbrella, letting it land on my hair, my coat, my thoughts. Alberta Street was quiet, washed in gray. Shops glowing behind fogged windows, people moving quickly with hoods pulled tight. I needed the distance. From the house, from the silence, from the words neither my daughter nor my mother seemed able to carry without dropping on me. My phone buzzed once, then stopped. I did not look. A woman passed me, tugging a child by the hand, her voice soft but firm. Slow down, sweetheart. You will slip. Something in me tightened. A memory rose without warning. Lila at 6, rain boots too big, splashing through puddles with her hair in braids. I used to hold her hand the same way. I used to think tenderness was the answer to everything. After my divorce, after the shouting, the slammed doors, the nights where I prayed my daughter would not hear what her father said before leaving, I had promised myself one thing: keep things gentle. No raised voices, no harsh words, no punishments rooted in fear. I wanted to build a life where Lila always felt safe. I just never imagined she would learn to use that safety like armor. I stopped in front of a bakery window, the glass warm against my palm. A mother and teenage daughter sat inside sharing a pastry, talking with their heads bent close. The girl laughed at something, and the mother laughed right after. They looked tired, but connected. It stung to look at them. Lila and I used to be like that. We used to talk about everything: school, friends, her dreams, her fears. She used to curl up next to me on the couch and ask if I thought she would ever be as strong as you, Mom. She was 8 when she said it. Now she was 32 and breaking under pressures I did not even know existed. Maybe that was my fault. I told myself shielding her from conflict would protect her. I thought swallowing my own hurt would teach her that love was steady and unconditional. I thought giving her gentleness would prepare her for the hardness of the world. But maybe all I did was teach her that my boundaries were optional. Thora, a voice said behind me. I turned. It was Janet, my neighbor from 2 houses down, holding a canvas grocery bag and squinting through the rain. You all right? You look somewhere else. I forced a smile. Just taking a walk. Cold night for that, she said. Everything okay at home? Family things, I murmured. She nodded. The kind of nod women give when they have their own family things they do not talk about. Well, if you need anything, knock on my door. Thank you. She walked on, leaving me alone again with the drizzle and my thoughts. I crossed the street and kept walking, letting the sound of traffic and rain drown out the replay of Lila's voice from last night. The sharpness, the sarcasm, the way she wielded words like weapons because she knew I would never pick any up to throw back. I loved my daughter fiercely, but love, unchecked, could bend into something unrecognizable. By the time I reached the corner where Alberta met 15th, my coat was soaked through and my breath came out in small, white clouds. I pressed my hand to my chest, not for warmth, but to steady something shifting inside me, something I had ignored for too many years. Maybe Lila was not the only one who needed to learn how to speak differently. And maybe I needed to learn how to stop being the ground everyone walked on. Lila showed up close to 10 that night. No warning. No knock. Just the soft click of the front door and her voice calling, "Mom." I stepped out of my room. "I am here." She stood in the hallway, hair damp from the rain, eyes red around the edges. She looked older than 32 in that moment, tired in a way makeup or rest could not fix. "Can we talk?" she asked. I nodded and led her into the living room. My mother was already asleep. The house was quiet enough to hear the hum of the refrigerator. Lila sank into the couch beside me, wrapping her arms around herself the way she used to do when she was little after a bad dream. "I should not have said what I did at dinner," she muttered. "That is true," I said, "but it is not the only thing going on." She let out a long, shaky breath. "I hate all of it. I hate how I sound. I hate how I talk to you. I hate feeling like this all the time." "Like what?" She hesitated, then whispered. "Like the worst one." The words landed between us, raw and unpolished. "What makes you feel that way?" I asked quietly. "Everything," she said, her voice cracking. "At work, I am always one mistake from being replaced. Everyone around me is younger, faster, better. I used to feel ahead. Now I am just trying not to drown." She wiped her nose with the back of her hand, and every day I pretend I am fine. I smile. I nod. I overwork. I take on extra tasks to seem indispensable. But I am exhausted, and when I come here, when I finally stop pretending I turn into someone I hate, I stayed still, letting her talk. She pressed her palms into her eyes. "You know why I say those awful things sometimes, because it is the only place I feel safe enough to fall apart. I cannot yell at my boss, a guy. I cannot scream in a meeting. I cannot cry in front of my coworkers. But here, I know you will still be here even if I am ugly." "That is not safety," I said softly. "That is hurting the people who will not fight back." She winced. I know that. Why did you lash out at your grandmother?" She swallowed hard. "Because I was angry at everything else, and she was right there, and she looked at me with so much hope, and her voice broke. I could not stand it. I felt like a disappointment again." "You were not a disappointment," I said. "You were cruel." She flinched, but did not argue. "I am scared all the time, Mom. I wake up scared. I go to work scared. And then I come home and I take it out on the people I love because I do not know what else to do with it." I reached out and touched her hand. She let me. "For the first time in days, you can be scared." I said, "You can be overwhelmed. You can be tired, but you cannot keep breaking us to feel less broken yourself." Tears slid down her cheeks, silent and steady. "I do not want to lose you," she whispered. "You will not," I said, "but you cannot keep hurting us to feel safe." She nodded, barely. A small, fragile movement. For the first time in a long while, I saw the child she once was, the one who used to cling to my shirt when she felt overwhelmed. Hoping I would help her make sense of the world, she leaned into me. Just slightly, her voice shaking. "I hate feeling like the worst one." I squeezed her hand. "We will figure this out," I said. But inside, a quieter truth settled in my chest. Loving her would now require new boundaries, ones that might hurt us both, before they healed anything at all. Lila stayed on the couch after her tears slowed. Her hands knotted together, her breath still uneven. She looked fragile in a way I had not seen since she was a child. Like one wrong word might make her shut down completely. I sat beside her, not touching her this time. Some things needed space to land. "There is something you need to know," I said quietly. She stiffened. "About what? About the dinner?" Her eyes flicked toward me. "Wary." Mom, please do not make this worse. I already feel this is not to punish you. I interrupted gently. It is to tell you the truth. You did not see. She nodded. Barely. I took a slow breath. Your grandmother planned that meal for days. Lila's head lifted slightly. She made a list on Tuesday. I continued. She walked with me to the store on Wednesday, even though her knees were aching. Yesterday morning, she stood in the kitchen for almost an hour, deciding which spices to use. She wanted it to taste like the meals she used to make when you were little. Lila's lips parted, but no sound came out. She told me she missed cooking for her family. I said she wanted to feel like herself again, like the woman who raised 3 children and worked 6 days a week and still had the energy to make apple pie on Sundays. Lila's face drained of color. She wanted to surprise you. I added softly. She kept asking me if you still liked that dish. She said she remembered how you used to scrape your bowl clean when you were 9. Lila pressed her hand to her mouth, eyes brimming. She put every bit of strength she had into that meal. I said, she did it for you. A tear slid down Lila's cheek. Mom, stop. I am not saying this to hurt you. I said, but you have to understand what happened. You did not insult a dinner. You humiliated a woman who adores you. A woman who used to rock you to sleep when I was working double shifts at the hospital. A woman who paid your field trip fees when your father refused. A woman who taught you how to braid your hair. Lila's shoulders trembled. I did not know. You did not ask. I said. That landed hard. Her breath hitched, and she covered her face with both hands. God, she must hate me. No, I said immediately. She does not hate you. But she was hurt. Deeply. Lila shook her head, tears slipping through her fingers. I did not mean I was angry and stressed and tired, and you were careless. I said, not unkindly, and it cut her. She looked at me, then really looked, her eyes wide, terrified, ashamed. How do I fix this? I hesitated, not to withhold, but because the moment needed stillness. You face her, I said. You talk to her. You apologize, honestly. With no excuses. Lila nodded slowly, like a child accepting a consequence she knew she deserved. Her voice came out barely above a whisper. I hurt her, didn't I? I took her hand. Yes, I said. You did. She closed her eyes, breathing in sharply as the truth settled over her, heavy and undeniable. And for the first time, she understood exactly whose heart she had stepped on. Lila was still sitting on the couch, wiping at her face. When I said, there is more you need to understand about your grandmother, she let her hands fall slowly into her lap. More. Yes. I sank into the chair across from her. Because the woman you saw at dinner, that is not all she has ever been. Lila swallowed, bracing herself. When I was a girl, I began. Your grandmother worked at a diner near the old shipyard. It opened at 5 in the morning and closed at 3 in the afternoon. She would get there before sunrise, start the griddle, and keep that place running on nothing but determination and pots of coffee as strong as engine fuel. Lila blinked. Grandma. Working a diner. She did not mention it much. I said, but she fed half the harbor workers for years. She knew every face, every order, every man who dragged himself in after an all-night shift. She could flip 6 omelets at once, refill a dozen mugs, and still keep an eye on the register. I used to sit in the back corner with crayons, watching her fly across the room like she was built out of energy instead of bones. A faint smile pushed through the sadness on Lila's face. I cannot picture that. That is because you only know her now, I said. You did not see the woman who made Thanksgiving dinners big enough for 20 people, even when we only had 5. You did not see her pull pies out of the oven while handling 3 crying children and paying bills with tips she folded carefully in her apron pocket. Lila looked down. I did not know she worked that hard. She did, I said, And not just for herself, for us. Lila's breath wavered. She raised me while you worked, didn't she? Yes. The memory tightened something in my chest. I was juggling 2 jobs, one at the hospital and one cleaning offices at night. She stepped in every time I could, She put you to bed. She packed your lunches. She braided your hair in the mornings and stayed awake with you during fevers. Lila's voice broke. I barely remember that. You were small, I said, and she never asked for recognition. She just kept going. Lila wiped her eyes again, slower this time. I thought she was always gentle, soft. I did not realize she had been so strong. She is still strong, I said quietly. Just not in the ways she used to be. She looked toward the hallway leading to my mother's bedroom, her expression shifting shock, guilt, and something deeper, something aching. Mom, I did not know. I did not know any of that. No, I said, you did not. And that is why your words last night cut as deeply as they did. She knows she is changing. She knows she cannot do what she once did. She feels every limitation in her bones. But she wanted last night to feel like the old days. She wanted to contribute. She wanted to matter. Lila covered her mouth with both hands, shaking, and I made her feel useless. You made her feel erased. Her shoulders collapsed inward. She whispered. I did not see her. I did not even think to look. I moved to sit beside her. She did not resist when I wrapped an arm lightly around her shoulders. You cannot change yesterday, I said, but you can face her tomorrow. Lila leaned forward, elbows on her knees, her voice barely audible. How do I look her in the eyes after this? You start by remembering who she was. I said, not the frail hands, not the trembling, but the woman who held this family together for decades. She nodded slowly, absorbing each word as if they carried weight she had never known to lift before. I hurt the strongest person I ever had, she whispered. Yes, I said softly. And now you know exactly who you owe the truth to. Lila arrived early the next morning, long before she usually stirred on a weekend. I heard the door open softly, then close with the care of someone trying not to wake a house already bruised. I stepped out of the kitchen just as she was taking off her coat. Her shoulders were tight, her face pale. Is Grandma awake? She asked. She is in her room, I said, resting. She had a hard night. Lila nodded once, jaw tense. I want to talk to her. I didn't stop her. I simply stepped aside. She walked slowly down the hallway, her hand brushing the wall like she needed something solid to guide her. When she reached the doorframe, she paused, inhaled, and lifted her hand to knock. Then she froze. Her breathing quickened. She stared at the wood grain of the door as if it were something alive, something that could judge her before she even entered. I stayed at a distance, giving her silence. After several seconds, she whispered, I can do this. But she didn't knock. Her hand trembled in the air, suspended between intention and fear. She tried again. Grandma, she murmured. No answer. My mother was probably dozing. The silence hit Lila harder than any shouted response could have. Her throat moved as she attempted to speak, and I saw the exact moment the apology caught in her chest. Her face crumpled, her shoulders curled inward, and she stepped back from the doorway like she'd touched something burning. She turned away, pressed her knuckles against her mouth, then practically fled down the hallway. Lila, I called softly. She shook her head and kept moving, barely making it to the living room before she collapsed onto the couch. She pulled her knees up to her chest, hands shaking. I approached slowly, sitting in the armchair beside her. I didn't reach for her. I waited. After nearly a minute, she whispered, I cannot do it. You can, I said, but not if you are trying to force the words out of fear. She buried her face in her arms. I saw her lying there, and all I could think was that she is so small now, so fragile. I hurt someone fragile. Her voice cracked painfully. How do you walk toward the person you broke? You walk because she deserves the truth. I said, and so do you. I thought I was ready, she whispered. Last night. Talking to you, I thought I could do it. But then I saw her door, and it felt like all the air left my body. I leaned forward. She is not a door. Lila flinched. She is the same woman who lifted you out of the bathtub when you were shivering. The same woman who ran down Alberta Street to find you when you wandered off at 4. The same woman who sat in a hard plastic chair for 6 hours when you had that fever in elementary school. She is not a door. Lila, she is your family. Lila looked up, eyes swollen and desperate. What if she never looks at me the same way again? Then you accept that. I said, because that is what love is, not control, not perfection. Love is facing the truth even when it scares you. A tear slipped down her cheek. I am terrified of being unforgivable. I moved to sit beside her slow enough not to startle her. When I touched her hand this time, she didn't pull away. Being wrong does not make you unforgivable. I said, refusing to make it right is what keeps people apart. She nodded, inhaling shakily, her fingers tightening around mine. Try again later, I said, when you are ready, not because it is easy, but because she matters to you. Lila wiped her cheeks with the back of her hand. I will. I just need a little more time. I stayed beside her until her breathing steadied. Some wounds take time to walk toward. Some truths need gentleness when spoken aloud. And some apologies begin first with the person learning how to face themselves. I kept dinner simple on purpose. 3 plates, 1 dish, no decorations, no distractions. Just the 3 of us sitting at the same table where everything had cracked open days before. My mother walked slowly from the hallway, steadying herself on the chair before sitting down. She looked better than she had yesterday, but there was a carefulness to her movements, a quiet awareness of the emotional terrain she was stepping into. Lila arrived last. She paused in the doorway, eyes lowered, her hands clasped so tightly they trembled. When she sat, she chose the same seat she'd taken the night she'd made the comment, as if she wanted to face the scene exactly as it had been. For a moment, none of us spoke. My mother reached for her fork, but her hand hovered instead. This looks lovely. Thora, thank you, I murmured. I thought something light would be easier tonight. Lila swallowed. Grandma, my mother looked up gently. Yes, sweetheart. The endearment almost broke Lila before she started. She inhaled sharply, the sound thin, like someone pulling air through a cracked window. I owe you something important. My mother's eyes softened, but she didn't interrupt. Lila's voice wavered. I am sorry for what I said at dinner. I am sorry for how I said it. I was rude and disrespectful, and I did not think I hurt you, and it was not fair, and it was not about you, and her voice cracked. She pressed her hand to her mouth, trying to steady it. My mother leaned forward slowly. Take your time. Lila nodded, tears gathering. I thought I was just venting. I thought I was being clever, or funny, or I do not even know what I thought. But I was actually just being cruel, and I didn't even stop to wonder who made the meal, or how much effort it took, or why someone would cook for me at all. My mother blinked, her lashes trembling. Lila wiped her eyes. Mom told me everything, about how you planned it, about how you went to the store even though your knees hurt, about how you used to cook for the whole family and hold everything together. And I just tossed all of that aside like it meant nothing. My mother breathed out slowly, her fingers curling over the edge of the table. I am so sorry, Lila whispered. I am sorry for hurting you, Grandma. I am sorry for not seeing you. I am sorry for being unkind to someone who has always been kind to me. I watched my mother's face carefully. Watched the way her expression shifted from surprise to sorrow to something deeper, something like relief. She reached across the table and laid her hand over Lila's. Thank you for saying that. Lila looked up, startled by the steadiness in her voice. I was hurt, my mother said softly. Not because the food mattered that much, but because I know what I am now. I know I cannot do things the way I used to. Every day I feel myself slipping a little more, and when you said what you said, I felt foolish for trying. Lila's breath hitched. You are not foolish. I was wrong. My mother smiled, a small, fragile smile. You were hurting, and you forgot that your words hit people even when they are not the ones you are angry at. I will not forget again, Lila said quickly. You will, my mother replied gently. Everyone forgets sometimes, but the important thing is that you found your way back today. Lila let out a trembling exhale. Do you forgive me? My mother squeezed her hand. I forgave you the moment you cried outside my door. Lila let out a broken laugh. I did not know you heard me. I hear you, sweetheart, she said. I always have. The tension in Lila's shoulders loosened. She reached out, and my mother opened her arms. Lila leaned in, resting her forehead against her grandmother's. Tears falling freely now. I stayed quiet, giving them the space they needed. When they finally pulled apart, my mother dabbed her eyes with her napkin. Now, she said carefully, shall we eat before it gets cold? Lila nodded, wiping her face. Yes, please. We began passing dishes around slowly, gently, a little awkward. But every movement felt like a stitch pulling us closer instead of tearing us further apart. It was not perfect. It was not fixed. But something had shifted back into place. Something small and real. Something we could build on. And I knew the apology was only the beginning. Living differently after it. That would take the real work. The next morning, the house felt different. Not lighter, just quieter, in a way that did not feel like walking on cracked ice. My mother was already dressed when I came into the kitchen, her apron tied loosely around her waist, a bowl on the counter, a wooden spoon in her hand. You are up early, I said. She smiled softly. I thought maybe we could cook something today. Before I could answer, Lila stepped into the doorway. She looked hesitant, as if she did not want to intrude on a moment that wasn't meant for her. Grandma, she said quietly, what are you making? A recipe you have not seen me use in many years, my mother said, tapping the spoon gently against the bowl. Your favorite one. Lila blinked, surprised. You remember which one was my favorite? My mother gave a small laugh. I remember everything you loved. Something in Lila's face softened. Something that had been clenched and guarded for far too long. My mother nodded toward the counter. Come help me. Both of you. We all moved into the tiny kitchen, crowding around the narrow counter where the mixing bowls and measuring cups were lined up. It was barely big enough for 2 people, let alone 3, but my mother waved us closer anyway. Here, she said to Lila. Hold this bowl steady while I mix. Lila stepped beside her, and their elbows bumped immediately. Sorry, Lila whispered. My mother chuckled. If you are going to cook with me, you will need to get used to a few bruises. I turned toward the cabinet to grab the flour, and when I twisted back around, Lila was already reaching for the measuring cup. 1 cup, right? She asked. My mother gave her an approving nod. Look at you, remembering. Lila smiled shyly. Some things stay somewhere in my head. I guess. Good, my mother said, placing a hand briefly on her arm. Hold on to the good things. As Lila poured the flour, some of it puffed into the air, a cloud of white drifting across the counter and landing on the floor. I stepped back instinctively, but my mother just laughed. Perfect, she said. Now it feels like we are really cooking. I shook my head, a smile tugging at my mouth. You always said the messiest dishes tasted the best, and I was always right, my mother said proudly. Leela looked between us, a small, incredulous smile forming, like she was remembering something she had not realized she had forgotten. Grandma, can you show me the folding trick again? She asked. I never understood how you made the batter look so smooth. My mother handed her the spoon. It is not a trick. It is patience. Lila dipped the spoon into the bowl, moving slowly, carefully, her brow furrowed as she mimicked the motion. No, no, my mother said. Stepping behind her, she placed her hands lightly over Lila's, guiding the motion. Let the spoon do the work. Do not force it. Lila exhaled, relaxing under her touch. Like this, she asked. My mother nodded. Just like that. The three of us stood pressed closely in that kitchen, too small, too warm, too full of history, but it felt right somehow. Natural. A place where elbows collided, hands overlapped, and voices slipped into an easy rhythm. At one point, I bumped into Lila, sending a small burst of flour into the air. She laughed a real laugh, bright and surprised, and leaned into me lightly to keep her balance. My mother smiled at the sound, the lines around her eyes deepening. There it is, she murmured. It has been too long since I heard that. Lila glanced at her grandmother, eyes glistening again, but this time not from pain. I missed this, she said. I missed both of you. My mother reached out and brushed her cheek gently. Then stay with us for a while, she said. We can bake all day if you want. We can, I added, or do nothing at all. Just be here. Lila nodded, the spoon still in her hand, her breath steady. I want to learn all your recipes. She told her grandmother, every single one. My mother beamed. Then we better not waste any time. And as the bowl passed from hand to hand, flour dusted our clothes, and laughter filled the cramped room. I realized something had shifted again, not suddenly, not dramatically, but undeniably. 3 women in a small kitchen, a recipe older than any of us, hands touching, voices soft, hearts mending, and for the first time in years, it felt like we were cooking our way back to each other. We decided to eat early that evening, not because any of us were hungry, but because the 3 of us had worked all morning on the meal, and letting it sit felt wrong, like letting a fragile moment cool before it had the chance to settle. The table was set simply. No candles, no centerpieces, just 3 plates and the dish we had made together, a casserole uneven at the edges, browned more on one side than the other, and carrying the unmistakable look of too many cooks in too small a kitchen. My mother sat down first, easing into her chair with a soft sigh. It looks lovely, she said. Lila hovered with the serving spoon in her shaking hand. It does not look lovely. Grandma, it looks like we dropped it once and pretended we did not. My mother laughed, a warm, real laugh. That is half the charm. Lila's shoulders lowered just a fraction. She spooned the food onto each plate with careful precision, as if afraid one wrong move might break the spell between them. When she finally sat, she stared at her plate for a long moment, gathering courage. Is it okay? She asked. The question was so soft, so unsure, that it made my chest tighten. Days ago, she had thrown words like darts. Now she offered them like glass. My mother didn't answer immediately. She picked up her fork, took a bite, and closed her eyes as though she were savoring something far more intricate than a home-cooked dish with uneven seasoning. Then she nodded. It is more than okay. It tastes like family. Lila's breath left her in a shaky exhale. You mean that? Of course I mean it. My mother said, "Food made with effort always tastes good. Food made with love tastes even better." Lila blinked rapidly. "I was so scared you would still be angry." "Oh, sweetheart," my mother said gently. "Being hurt is not the same as staying hurt." I watched Lila's mouth tremble, watched her take in every softened syllable, every ounce of kindness she had once pushed away. She picked up her fork and took her first bite with the air of someone afraid she might disappoint again. My mother leaned forward. "Tell me what you taste." Lila blinked. Too much time. Maybe." My mother smiled. "Yes, but that is what makes it ours." Lila laughed. The sound small but genuine. "I am learning, and I am still teaching." My mother replied, "That is a good balance." The three of us ate quietly after that, not in tense silence, but in the kind that settles into a room when people are finally aligned, finally breathing in the same rhythm. Halfway through the meal, Lila put her fork down. "I want to do this more often," she said. "Cooking with you, eating like this, being here." My mother nodded. "Then we will." Lila turned to me. "Mom, is this okay with you?" Her voice held something new, not guilt, not fear, but responsibility. The willingness to contribute instead of collapse into me. I reached out and touched her hand. "It feels right," she exhaled, relief washing through her features. "I want to help hold this together," she said quietly. "I know I broke things. I know I caused a lot of pain." My mother cut in gently. "You were hurting too. That does not excuse it, but it explains it." Lila nodded, wiping her thumb across her cheek. "Still, I want to be better. I want to show you both I can be better." The room held a stillness, then not heavy, not fragile, just full. The casserole was imperfect. The table was plain. But the space between us, carefully rebuilt, carefully held, felt stronger than it had in years. As we finished the last bites, I looked at my daughter, this woman who had once shattered the room with a single sentence, and saw her now doing the quiet, steady work of holding something precious together. After dinner, when the dishes were rinsed and stacked to dry, Lila lingered by the counter instead of reaching for her coat. My mother had already gone to her room for the night, humming softly down the hallway. The house felt calm in a way it hadn't in a long time. Lila leaned against the counter, arms folded tightly. "Mom, can we talk?" "Really talk?" I nodded. "Of course." She took a breath, long and uneven. "You saw the HR email?" "Yes. I did not want you to," she said, but maybe it was the only way this conversation could happen. I waited. Her eyes flicked to the floor. They are worried I am showing burnout indicators, missing deadlines, short emails, snapping in meetings. She let out a brittle laugh. "Apparently, I am not as subtle as I thought. You are exhausted." I said, "I am drowning." She corrected. "I work in a city where everyone is brilliant. Everyone is younger. Everyone acts like one wrong move will ruin their entire career. And maybe it will. I wake up every morning terrified I will be the one they decide to replace." She pressed her palms to her eyes. "I have been pretending I can keep up, pretending I am fine, pretending that if I just push harder, I will belong again." Her voice thinned. "But I do not belong. I am slipping." I stepped closer. "Why did you not come to me? Because you already carry enough," she whispered. "Because I did not want you to see that I am failing." "You are not failing," I said. She looked up sharply. "Mom, look at me. Look at how I have treated you, sis. Look at how I treated Grandma. That is what happens when I'm stretched thin. I turn into someone who hurts the people I love." She let her arms fall. "And that is why something has to change." I stayed silent, letting her fill the quiet. "I cannot keep pretending everything is fine," she said. "And you cannot keep absorbing all of it like you always have. We both need boundaries. The word hung in the air, new, but necessary. I nodded. You are right. She blinked. I am, yes. No more casual cruelty. No more sharp comments you call honesty. And no more swallowing your stress until it spills out on whoever is closest. A tear slipped down her cheek. I can do that. And, I added gently, no more pretending you are invincible. If you need help, real help, not just a place to fall apart, you tell me. She nodded again, slower this time. I will. We stood in the kitchen, nothing but the soft hum of the refrigerator between us. Lila wiped her cheeks. I want a different kind of future, she said. One where I am not angry all the time. One where we do not feel like strangers. I reached for her hand. She let me hold it. Then we build it, I said. It. Her fingers tightened around mine. Not desperately, but deliberately, like she had decided to stay present instead of retreat. For the first time in years, she let the truth sit openly between us, without walls or excuses, and it felt like the beginning of something we had both been afraid to reach for. Weeks later, the house felt different, warmer in a way that had nothing to do with the heater humming beside the window. Rain tapped steadily against the glass panes, the kind of soft Portland rain that made everything feel closer, quieter. I stood in the doorway of the kitchen, watching my mother and Lila shoulder to shoulder at the counter. They were arguing gently about how finely to chop the herbs. That is too small. My mother insisted. Lila laughed. Grandma, you cannot even see it from here. I can feel when something is wrong, my mother shot back, lifting a finger like she used to when I was small. Lila nudged her. Then feel again. It is perfect. Their elbows bumped. Someone's spoon clattered to the floor. My mother muttered something dramatic about losing her touch, and Lila grinned as she bent to pick it up. The two of them moved around the little kitchen like they had been doing this dance for years and had just forgotten the steps for a while. I stepped farther into the room. Are the two of you cooking or rehearsing a comedy act? They both turned. Lila held up the cutting board proudly. Look, we made something that looks intentional. My mother squinted at the pile. Debatable, but she said it with fondness, not criticism. I took a seat at the table and watched them, really watched them. Lila's shoulders weren't tight anymore. My mother wasn't shrinking herself. Their voices wove together easily, soft and uneven and human. Mom, Lila said suddenly, glancing at me. You want to taste this? I shook my head. You two made it. I will wait until it is finished. She exchanged a look with my mother, one of those looks that said something deeper. We are trying. We are learning. We are still here. As they returned to the stove, I felt something settle inside me. The cruel sentence from that first dinner, sharp enough to cut bone, had not destroyed us. It had forced us to stop pretending nothing was cracking beneath the surface. It had forced my daughter to confront her fear. It had forced my mother to speak her hurt. And it had forced me to stop carrying everything quietly. A few minutes later, my mother tapped the spoon against the pot. Dinner is ready, she announced with theatrical importance. Lila leaned close to her. We did good, Grandma. My mother squeezed her hand. We did. And for the first time in a very long time, our home felt like home again. Small kitchen. Imperfect meal. Soft rain. And the three of us stitched back together by the work of our own hands. If you have ever heard someone you love say something that cut you to the bone, tell me what happened next and what kind of love it revealed. Like, comment, and subscribe to hear more true stories of family, forgiveness, and second chances.